Okay, Mudfossil University here, the voice of Mudfossil University, and I am speaking today about the original people of Australia. They call them Aborigines. They were actually the original inhabitants, and they go back to the beginning of time, literally. And they are carrying on these traditions and teaching the new original peoples the culture that they have been pretty much denied, mostly for and every place on earth. I mean, I'm not pointing any bullets at anybody. I'm just saying that, as we all know, the original peoples of everywhere on earth have been treated like they were silly, and I have come to realize that is silly. Those are the people that are in touch with reality. And Mudfossils has turned this whole thing on its head, because it's true, the things that they are saying are supported by the evidence that exists on the ground. So let's dig into the evidence, and then we'll dig into the sayings and what they told them. And these are what they call the dream times, the times that created the earth, and the creatures that lived here on the earth were literally the earth, and they treat every single thing on the earth as a living thing, and it is. The water, the air, I believe it's called Katikitanga, or something along those lines. They respect the earth because the earth is alive. Somebody's got to start to understand this earth is alive. It's not just something that is dead rocks and dust and dirt, water all over the place. It is a living creature. I'm not saying that, metaphorically. This is a living, literally alive creature that we are assaulting in every possible way. And these people understand it. And these are the people we should have in charge of our world. That's all I have to say about that. But I don't mean to be nasty about it, but the things that are being ignored are just absolutely unbelievable, that they can get away with ignoring the reality of our situation and destroying this earth for the coming generations. It's not right. It should at least be looked at. If it just comes out to be silly, fine. But Mudfossils is literally proof. It's DNA certified proof that the things that were written have an extremely valid basis. And that is something that needs to be taken into account in the places where they claim to be educating the truth of our existence. And I am saying that is being avoided, because it's not as nice as they thought it was. It's not as simple. And these are the people right here. Those are the people that we should be talking to about the reality. They've carried on the traditions. They understand. We treat them with the worst disrespect, and think that, and not just them, the American natives, the native inhabitants of America. It's really, it's a disgrace worldwide. The arrogance and the colonialism that's caused this, and now is leading to the destruction of our earth. So let's go into this, and we'll see what this is all about. And you make up your own mind. Maybe I'm a nutcase, but I think this is all reality and Mudfossils, and I'll show you the evidence. It's not just something I'm making up and guessing at. All right, so that'll come up on phase 2 on this. Okay, in the first part of this, I talked about, this is again Mudfossil University. It's Roger, voice of Mudfossil University. And as we left off here with these original peoples of Australia carrying on the traditions of their country. Now, listen to this. This is an outstanding video, and well thought out, and exploring. It's called the full documentary, The Men of the Fifth World, Planet Doc full documentaries. And they are showing that these people were of the original world. They're not of our world, but they are certainly of this world, which is the original world. We reinvented this world into a fantasy world. That's fact. The things that are in the stones cannot be denied, and they are being denied. DNA, CAT scans, anatomists, chemistry, recreation of the chemistry, lab work. There is nothing that has not been proven here, and it is avoided because of the implications it has on the people that teach us. Really, that's who it is. It's the ones that teach us are embarrassed and will not confront this. So let's talk about it here. I'm going to play the documentary, and we will go from there. So here it goes. Now, I'm going to show you the mud fossils as we go along.
We elders have the important task of initiating the young into our customs, explaining our history to them, and teaching them to respect the traditional laws.
I'll stop.
Our people, our culture, are the oldest in the world. We were already here thousands of years ago. We were around at the same time as what the white men called Homo sapiens. In these caves and caverns, we can feel the influence of the spirits of our...
Look at all of the mud fossil walls in the background. They can feel this. These people are in touch with reality. We've lost this. They never lost it. Look at all, watch everything, and as we come up on minute 5, you'll see a red stripe come up here, and they did not put there is blood. And I will show you the same. I have the exact same material here in a much smaller form, but this is a huge, huge, huge mud fossil, and I believe, well, I'll tell you what it is later because you'll never believe it. So let's continue on here.
My ancestors. If you sleep here, you can see them in your dreams and receive their messages. They come and fill you with their strength, and when you wake, you feel very good. These are sacred places for us. In the past, people lived in caves and natural shelters like these. Across all our territory, you can find paintings made by our forefathers in which speak of the Dreamtime, the creation, and how they lived 50,000 years ago.
Transition metals from blood, all leaking out of there. Now, at a point you will see...
In the Kakadu National Park lies Ubi Rock, where the rainbow serpent stopped after creating the world and was painted on a rock so that people could see her. Over time, our forefathers...
Alright, this is, and I am going to show you the exact same material I have here in an extremely smaller form, but this is, they didn't paint that on there, that is blood. That's a layer of blood between the layers of muscle tissue. And I will show you have identical same structure here. And there is a zillion little tiny layers of skin or flesh or whatever it is. It's layers of tissues that are separated from each other and glide back and forth in this type of a manner and along the fascia, which has slippery, gooey stuff they call it. I think it's called leucine-rich proteins. And this is one of these bloody investments that services all of this tissue through these little tiny holes and things with nutrients. So let's continue on here for a minute or two, and then I will show you my rocks, and then we'll go from there.
Others left on the rocks a complete collection of images.
They didn't paint
their way of life and
carved.
beliefs.
That's carved.
They painted the animals they hunted or fished, so the spirits would help them capture them. In this way, we know to what extent these animals are the same ones as those we eat today.
One thing I want to point out, you see the different colors on this different same substrate here? To my mind, they knew something about alchemy because this is been treated with some form of caustic or an acid compared to the other places in here. And they must have drawn that in there somehow or scratched that off to reach a layer of oxidation which was totally different. And then they oxidized at a different rate. But I believe this reddish stuff here has been hit with some kind of an acid or something, because that will bring out the metal complexes so where you can see the colors. And I believe they did something with alchemy here. I don't think that's just a natural way it happened. But they did carve it and scratch.
Long-necked tortoises, kangaroos, crocodiles, wallabies.
All right, anyway, that's enough for that. But you could see all the layers of skin and tissue and so forth, and there was a white kaolin clays there and all the marbling. And I'm going to show you some rocks here that have extreme similarities. Okay, this is basically the same sort of situation. This is the red blood layer where they carve stuff in, and you can actually, you could remove that with your fingernails. This is nothing but blood cells. It's blood cells, and that erodes right out of here. You see how that's undercut? You see how it's all undercut all over here? You see up under there the cracks and so forth. That is where they made caves, in the huge ones. Now I have a light here in my hand, so I'm not having a hard time moving this stuff. But if you can see up under there, you see, and this right here is the muscle structure, and that right there is one of these investments where it goes between the different types of the muscle tissue, and you can see all the layers. You see all those extremely fine layers of muscle tissue there? That's not something that is erosion, not at all. And I can show you that very clearly. It has nothing to do with erosion. It's interwoven muscle fibers. And it's very simple to see. In the back here is easiest probably. Well, you can see it anywhere. It's everywhere. You see how finely woven those fibers are into each other? You see that? And then they have that red, you see down the bottom, another big layer of that red slurpy stuff. They call it leucine, small leucine-rich proteins, only in here they're big. That whole layer right there is blood. That whole thing is blood. And if you put water on there, it turns a little pinker. But it's, you know, I mean, it's obviously very heavily oxidized by now. But at any rate, that is what it is. It's blood. And that is the, I just put a little water on there so you can see a little more red. But that's what we were looking at, and that's what the Aborigines have. And they understand these things, and we do not. It's time we made a little more effort to look into this. And I have all kinds of different videos on this, and this is seen exactly identical to this on Mars. Identical. And I have found blood vessels on Mars. The Mars crab is an arterial. It has the arterial red stuff. See, you can take this out with your fingernails. When they think they did a whole batch of digging and so forth, they didn't do all that much work. You can literally, you can do it with your fingernails. But once you hit this stuff, now you're in a different situation. But in the red stuff, you can, it's just like powder. It's like dust. So a lot less work was done than they suspect. They think they dug through big, heavy stone continuously. It's all the same stuff. Not at all. And I have other ones that show all the claws that hang down, and then underneath it's, well, wait a minute. Here's one right here. I don't know if you can see. Well, you really can't see this one that well, but there's actually claws that dig right into the bone, and when you excavate in between the claws, it holds up the ceiling, and you have all these little claws sticking down. And I have a video showing the original peoples of Australia living in one of those, or, you know, drawing all their cave drawings and so forth in there. So this is quite real, and this is the type of tissues you can get, and you see that on that wall behind those, the elders speaking to the kids. You have all this marbling effect. And then the kaolin clays up above. But this is quite real. There's a bone. It's just a mud fossil bone, and it's very highly articulated. And they wrap around. You see this this little triangular-looking thing here? That wraps right around and seals. That's tunica, and it's like a wrapping around the bones. Now the bones go away in mud fossils to where there's virtually nothing left. Well, here's a giant finger over here. Hold on a second. See there, that giant finger? Right there. You see what's left of the bone? There's nothing in there hardly. There's a couple of scraps in the middle. And up above there, that's the black blood, the vein blood, and then the red blood below that. That's a fingertip. And there's one there to the right. That's another fingertip. See? This one here, we stripped a lot of stuff off of there. The other one is, here's one that was CAT scanned. That one there, you could see the fingernail bed in it and all that stuff. And you see here, oh, that's where the tendon hooks in on the side. And you see the real black stuff? That's where the vein blood is. And always there's one side has a vein blood, and then on the other side has the red blood. And you can't see, you know, I didn't break that side off, but that side has the red blood. And this was CAT scan. And then the other finger that was found along with this, and the palm and all this other stuff, this is the other finger here. And if you take this to show this to an anatomist, you see that black stain on the top? That's the distal phalanges tip. And you see the two little the blood vessels on the bottom. One on the right is the artery. You see they're sealed on the side. There's two spots, but they're sealed. The one on the left is the artery. What did I say? This was the vein on the right. The one on the left is the artery, and those blow open. You see the holes, and the same thing on the end, they blow open. The three holes for the vein don't blow open because they have vein valves. And if you tip this just the right way, you can see the bone pattern right up here. I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, there's that, and then here's the knuckle. Here's the knuckle. That bone, that's the bone ball of the knuckle. It eroded heavily in spots, but some spots were hardly eroded at all. So this was like on the surface almost. And here's the, this is the way the tendons come down, and then they swing off the side. That's a tendinous bundle. And here you see this right here. Look down here, and you can see the actual muscle fiber. See the muscle fibers? Yeah. That's not erosion. That's not sedimentation. You see this? It's an entirely different material. That's muscle. This is tendon. All right, and I'll show you how it sits over here in the anatomical drawing. What we were just looking at is that right there. It's the knuckle ball, and then this piece running down, and they snap right off the same way they do on everything with an abrupt transition. So the stuff is quite real, and I have tons of it, and everybody has it. It's everywhere. This is not something special. This happened as a result of the Great Flood, and all this stuff was in water for extended time, and what happens is the flesh becomes semi-stable because it gets invaded by all the transition metals, which I've talked about over and over and over. And the transition metals invade, and they attach to the organic material, and that starts to mineralize them, and they start to become stable. And then when they dry out, they turn into stone because they're mineralized, stable, at the point of being just waterlogged, really. And then the water comes out of them, and they're literally minerals. And at that point, they take a firmness to them. But they still never, ever, ever stop transitioning until they turn into complete, like crystal. Just it happens. It's like silicon. It gets down to the point where there's very little left. There's silicon dioxide really is the sand, and the impurities in the sand eventually leach out of there, and you end up with silicon and oxygen. It's a transition process, and that's because the transition metals move in and out.